The City Council yesterday did vote yes on an ordinance that bans panhandling throughout the city, as we have discussed in detail here on the David Tullis Show, and also at yournews.com and Nuganomics.com, our chief sponsors. These are very frivolously benevolent actions by the council to suppress a private activity and to place really a great deal of confidence in strictures and police, turning the police department, as Darren Ledford suggested, into social workers, which he believes they are fit to be. They carry weapons and armor plate and arrest powers, and here now they're expected to be social workers, an experiment that has not gone well in many other venues across the country. David Tullis, we are at 92.7 FM, 95.3 FM, HD4 live on Facebook at Nougat Radio, and also on YouTube. You can see if my bow tie works today. Jeanette let me get out of the house without commenting on it, so I guess it's okay. Though you can't see it, it is the exact same color as my shirt. Therefore, I'd say probably not the best choice. We're talking now with a scientist, a very senior scientist in the country, who is, you might say, this is a journalistic cliche, but it is often used, the maverick scientist who goes his way apart from the established mores in his field. He is a nuclear geophysicist, 74 years old, J. Marvin Herndon in San Diego. And he broke the story in 2015 that we covered at Nuganomics.com, the only media platform in Chattanooga to cover this major environmental story. And that is the discovery that he made that the dumping in the long tattoos, the white tattoos across the sky periodically over you, my listener, are comprised of a toxic waste, which is secured in TVA mud ponds across the region and in utility mud ponds across the country. And that being coal fly ash kept in liquid and mud form so that it won't take to flight. It is so light that a breeze can set coal fly ash up into the air. And so since it is toxic, having many dangerous elements in it, it is kept in mud and pond form around the country. But it's used secretly by the good people in Washington. And we're asking Dr. Herndon to tell us about this program. It is a program run by the federal security state in secret. And one could even say the deep state that the right-wing talk radio crowd is talking a great deal about. But that does exist. It exists even here in Tennessee, a deep state, a state behind the government, if you will, that operates in many ways against the interest of the people. And even Dr. Herndon suggests even against humanity itself, because Dr. Herndon, your latest paper that we are reading about at yournews.com says that the skyscraping program is damaging the ozone layer so badly that what exactly are you saying is happening upon the skin and head of my listener?
Well, what the spring, we've already published a paper about mercury contamination that's happening globally. Mercury is one of the most poisonous substances in nature. And decades ago, governments implemented rules that prevented or very much restricted its use and disposal. Very much less mercury is used now than was ever used before. And it's highly regulated how you dispose of it. But mercury comes down in rain, and it's not that had the mercury in the rain hasn't decreased over time as it should if it were just due to normal ordinary mercury contamination. But it's been increasing. And we realized that mercury is in coal fly ash and often on the outside of grains, because when this formed in the hot vapors above the furnace, mercury, being a very volatile substance, is one of the last things to condense So it often coats these little tiny grains. And so this is, we warned about the contamination of the environment with mercury by this aerial spraying. That's one consequence. The aerial spraying has other consequences. For example, it's pollution. And there are many studies that have been done, epidemiological studies, on the health effects of pollution. And they're all bad. I mean, they can cause stroke, heart attacks, all sorts of respiratory problems. Some people say respiratory problems, low birth rate, weight, reduced male fertility, to name a few. And of course, this being a pollutant is the same concerns are manifest. That this will cause a whole host of problems, especially with people that have compromised immune systems or breathing systems. Asthmatics, for example, will suffer badly. Recently, my colleague, public health physician in Florida, and I published in a medical journal 2 papers. One was warning of the health risks due to the spraying of coal fly ash, the health risk of lung cancer. Now, lung cancer is, as you probably know from the story of cigarette smoking, lung cancer doesn't happen right away when you get exposed to something. It's something that may occur 20 or even 30 years down the road. Now, the particles that are put up in the sky, the area where clouds form, these fine particles, they eventually come down to Earth. That's why they have to spray every day. They have to put up more because they're constantly coming down. And they're so fine, you really can't see them unless you have many together in a big pile, because they're too small to see. And when you breathe them in, they go right into the deepest part of your lungs, to the terminal alveoli. And they settle and they remain trapped there for long periods of time. Now, these particles have elements in there that are known to cause lung cancer. For example, chromium-6, arsenic, radioactive elements. Radioactive elements decay, and these highly energetic particles tear up the DNA, and they're known to cause lung cancer. Coal fly ash has all this. So it's a real risk, not only to people who are workers around the coal fly ash and who live nearby, but they're risks to everybody now on a near global scale, from breathing the stuff that's being sprayed into the air. I mean, this is poisoning humanity on a grand scale. And it's not something with lung cancer you'll notice in the next 2 years or so, maybe 20 years, 25 years, or 30 years, there'll be a pandemic of lung cancer as a consequence. Well, that was the subject of one paper. The subject of another paper that was just published in the same medical journal about a week ago, the coal fly ash can enter the body, and it can end up in the brain. Now, there was an important study published in 2015. People with dementia have their brains have been studied, and they've been found to have magnetite, which is Fe3O4, magnetite plaques in their brain or on their brain. And these are usually crystalline shape formed, crystallized in the brain from the fluids. But the importance of this study is that they found spherical particles of magnetite in the brains of people with dementia. How does a spherical particle form? Well, it forms at high temperatures when it's essentially suspended in free air or free space, and it's liquid, and the surface tension of the melt holds it into a round shape. If you look at coal fly ash under a microscope, you'll see it's many, many, many little spheres. And some of those little spheres are magnetite spheres. And this is the first good evidence that something from outside of the body got into the brain and was responsible for the dementia.
So the brown particles come from coal fly ash.
Spraying.
Dr. Herndon, you're saying that these round particles are formed only at very high temperatures, which is to say the burning of coal, right? In the burning of coal at high temperature.
Risk in populations of dementia from the coal fly ash as a consequence of the coal fly ash. So that, I mean, this is bad stuff. Now, this recent paper is another bad consequence. We're bombarded by the sun with two things: charged particles and electromagnetic radiation. Well, the Earth's magnetic field deflects the charged particles around and away from the Earth. That's the first level of a shield. The second level of a shield that shields us from the electromagnetic radiation is the atmosphere, in particular the ozone part of the atmosphere. Light is electromagnetic radiation. And you know there's light that's on one end of the spectrum. There's light that you can't see. It's called infrared. It's basically heat. And at the other end of the spectrum, there's a more energetic form of light that you can't see called ultraviolet. And it's been widely believed that the most dangerous part of the spectrum, the ultraviolet C and most of the ultraviolet B, is blocked by the atmosphere. The atmosphere reacts with the UVC and the UVB and kills it. But what we measured is that it's occurring at the surface of the Earth. And that then, that is the dangerous part, because what it means is that the spraying that we're doing is killing the atmosphere. It's killing the protectors of the protecting part of the atmosphere, the ozone, that shields us from this deadly ultraviolet radiation. And the reason it is because the coal fly ash has things in it that react with ozone, chlorine, fluorine, bromine, iodine, little nanoparticles. They're all highly reactive and that can kill the ozone. So what happens? The ultraviolet C and the ultraviolet B then bombard the surface of the Earth. Ultraviolet C damages DNA, both of plants and animals and people and all life virtually. With humans, it's mostly in the surface areas, in the skin and in the eyes, because we're thick. But with insects, it goes right through their exoskeleton and damages the internal parts of insects. It is no surprise, therefore, that insect populations have been more than decimated in recent years. The ozone depletion allows the ultraviolet to come in. This kills the insects. And the insects are also being poisoned by the coal fly ash. It's being sprayed.
Let me ask you, Dr. Herndon, about my listener's health. Okay, my listener says, okay, I understand these things may be happening. What can he do practically, or what can she do practically to protect against the ultraviolet damage that you're reporting in your latest paper is bombarding the surface of the Earth now that we have damaged the ozone layer with our sky striping program?
Well, the avoiding the ultraviolet radiation is, I mean, you can stay indoors and avoid it. I don't know exactly how well the creams you put on, the sunblock, works with ultraviolet. I don't know that. That really needs to be looked into. But that's the easy part to protect yourself. The much harder part is, how do you protect yourself from the toxins in the coal fly ash that you're breathing with every breath, because they come into your house as well as being outside. And it takes highly efficient filter systems to trap those. I mean, people who have really serious allergy problems and have really highly filtered homes, they might be able to trap them, but most people can't. And so we're breathing this stuff. We're being exposed to these toxins. And the best thing you can do is to get the word out. Get the word out to the press, to the politicians, to the president.
So there's no practical safeguard.
I'm sorry, we're interrupting each other.
Sorry, I'm just asking you. There's no practical safeguard.
There's no practical way to prevent being poisoned by that aerial spraying.
But we can protest it.
But I will say this: no one has the right to poison the air we breathe, and that should everyone and every organization should protest that. And why they are silent is very much a matter of concern. Part of it is the intelligence agencies have spent many, many millions of dollars on psychological studies to understand how to deceive people. They're masters of it. And this is part of the deception. People, you ask somebody about the trails in the sky, and they'll say, oh, those are just jet contrails, no problem. Well, that's deception. And that's deception that was fostered by the United States Air Force. In a document in 2005, I believe, the Air Force said there's no such thing as chemtrails. And then they go on to say these are harmless contrails. Well, what is this? The military should be protecting the citizens of this country, not poisoning them, not lying to them, not becoming part of some international operation. Here's what happened. The military has long wanted to control the weather. The first thing they learned to do was to make it rain more or less on demand by seeding clouds with silver iodide or dry ice. Then they learned that by putting pollutant particles into the air, they can inhibit rainfall. And of course, it does other things besides inhibiting rainfall. It prevents heat loss from the surface. It traps heat from the sun and heats the atmosphere. It essentially causes global warming. And this has, I think, become a major industrial global scam. The United Nations.
Dr. Herndon, thank you so much. Dr. Herndon, thank you very much for joining me.
We're done.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would have made a smoother ending.
It's nuclearplant.com. It's Dr. Herndon's website, Dr. Marvin Herndon. This is David Toulis. Thanks for joining us. An important topic. Go to yournewsnow.com and read my story about it regarding Dr. Herndon.
3, 2, 1.
Chatter.